Oh, hey, welcome to Comic Book News. We're trying something new. We're live streaming. This is what the kids are doing these days, you know? They're not recording stuff and editing and uploading. They're just going live to the fans. So, hey, if you got stuff to say, this is live. If you're watching it now, you can talk in those comments below. If you have not already subscribed to this channel, please consider doing so. Think about, if you like this video, hitting that little like thing. If you don't like it, click the dislike, but please tell me why in the comments. And if you like it, talk about that in the comments too as well. Well, welcome to Comic Book News Live. Today we got a few things to talk about, man. This week was the last New Comics Day at comic book shops until I don't know when. What's going to happen next? Man, the whole industry is poised and waiting in anticipation. And a lot of news dropped this week about stuff. A lot of it from DC Comics. But, you know, let's end the preamble and let's get right into the show. We're going to talk about DC. We're going to talk about some new comics. It wasn't the greatest week for new comics, but there were a couple of decent ones, so we'll talk about that soon. Oh, I also want to say thank you to the Thinking Critical channel on YouTube for inviting me to be a recurring guest on their live stream. Every couple of weeks I'll be doing that, and I'll be bringing in Wes from Thinking Critical here on this channel to do a tag team review on some books and see what we can get to. Anyway, that's coming up soon. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Oh man, we're in the comic book shop for what might be, the last time? I don't really know. This is a hard thing to talk about, guys, because whoa, hey now, because you know I grew up in comic book shops, right? I started working at a comic book shop when I was 11 years old for $2 an hour store credit. I tell this story all the time because it really was formative to me, and I came back and I ended up running and buying that comic book shop years later. And now here we are in 2020. That was way back in 1986 when I started working at Mike's Coliseum in San Jose. Shout out to you, Mike Gamble. You started me on this road. And so anyway, here we are in 2020, man, and we are at a legitimate time when this could be the end of the comic book store as we know it. So many things are happening. Obviously, there's tons of stuff going on with this global pandemic, right? And comic book stores, you may be thinking like, who cares, man? I got bigger fish to fry. We got people dying. This is true, and I do not want to make light in any way of the current situation or circumstances, or even try to imply that the fate of comic book stores is somehow more important than even a single human life, because it is not. But man, it's important to me, and if you're watching this channel, I'll bet it's important to you. So let's dive into it for a second, because wow, one of the big pieces of news was Steve Geppi, the owner of Diamond Comics Distribution, the sole distributor of comic book pamphlets to comic book stores in the United States and probably the world, maybe, definitely the United States, has announced that they're going to not take any shipments of new comics from anybody. Okay, so if you're a comic book store that relies on comics as your primary source of income, or perhaps your only source of income, new comics, you're in trouble. You know, this is like the water company turning off the water supply, or PG&E turning off the power supply, because you got nothing new to sell if that's your main thing. Now, granted, most stores that sell comics also have back issues. Maybe they do trade paperbacks. Maybe they branched out into gaming. They're selling toys and stuff like that. But either way, a big part of their store identity is built around comics and selling comics, and that's not possible right now. The shutdown of non-essential businesses in many, many states is also going to be a crippling blow, frankly, to an industry that, is not in its best health anyway. So this could be a real problem. Let's look a little bit at some of the news, though, that's been coming out, because the disturbing part here for me has been that DC Comics' response to this stuff. Because, there was a time when I worked for, or when I had my comic book shop, DC was undisputedly on the side of retailers, right? It was not even a question about that. They were the most retail friendly. There was this guy, Bob Wayne, who was head of direct market sales, I believe, back then, who was a former retailer himself, and really did his best to make sure that comic book stores were taken care of. He recognized that it was the comic shops that kept comics alive for decades, and that anything that was done to hurt them was sort of like really a big problem. Well, there's a whole new regime at DC right now, right down to right from the top corporate ownership now down to the executive levels, and recent shakeup of Dan Didio getting 86th and Jim Lee being promoted from co-publisher to sole publisher at DC Comics means a lot of changes are coming. And so this is the first crisis the industry has faced since that regime change. And here's how they're responding to it. So basically, well, one, DC says, well, we're going to publish digital comics. That's just going to keep going. Okay, so this is going to take the product that now your fans that read regular comics cannot get and put it out in digital form. Now, there's two sides to this, right? A couple, maybe more than two sides, because there's the idea that, the creators who work on this stuff, well, they deserve to have work too, right? They got lives, and is there a reason they should stop work on all comics going forward? No. There's a digital distribution channel. There's trade paperback schedules to be maintained. These guys need to keep working, and they need to make income, I guess. So there's that aspect of it. The other aspect of it is basically that by putting this out there in the digital channel, and when it's totally unavailable as physical, this is the move being made to make a switch to pure digital distribution. One, the costs associated, no printing costs, right? Much lower costs of production. You just got to pay the people to create it, and if you sell 5 copies or 1 million copies, essentially that costs you the same to distribute, right, through a digital comics platform. You could go, and now also without having distribution, you're charging full price for those digital comics, right? All that goes to you, minus maybe whatever cut goes to the digital platform. If they were smart, they'd have their own platform, but they don't. So Comixology takes their 20, 30%, I think, probably 30%. That's leaving 70% of the cover price for the publisher. That's a lot more than they get right now. That's a lot more. So it's definitely more lucrative. Problem is the digital comics have not taken off. They've been around for a long time now, and people don't like them. The value is not there, especially compared to other digital assets, but also when you compare them to comics themselves, like the physical comics. At least I get to keep this thing. At least I could resell it. It might even go up in value. Or I could sell it for $1 or a quarter or 50 cents or whatever. A digital comic, man, you don't even have the rights to do that. You don't really own it. And that's a problem. So, okay. The more troubling issue. So putting out digital comics, controversial for sure, but I could see some sides of it. People are trapped at home. They want to read their comics. This is a way to get things to people that they want. Okay. More troubling is this story about DC using other distribution methods to get comics to stores. Okay, so since the Diamond Comic Distributor shutdown and the closure of DC's printer Transcontinental in Canada, there's been much discussion wondering what Marvel and DC Comics would be doing regarding comic books published this coming week. A number of publishers have declared that they will suspend publication, print and digital, while many comic book stores are also shut down. But DC Comics has remained resolutely silent regarding this issue. This changed tonight as they have now announced something very different to retailers. While they are making all comic books from over a week ago until the end of June returnable, which is good, it seems that DC Comics will not stop printing or distributing comics. They have sourced other printers, as we heard they may be, but also other means of distribution. As it stands, DC Comics is exclusive to the direct market through Diamond Comics Distributor, but only, it seems, while Diamond are actually in the business of taking new product. So, let's back it up for a second. Diamond is the sole distributor of comics to the direct market. They've got deals in place with DC and Marvel, basically a brokerage deal. They don't buy or own a single piece of inventory from any of those big publishers, right? They just get a fee for moving the comics from point A to point B. They get like whatever it is, a flat fee per book or a very small percentage per book, like 30 cents per comic book, goes into Diamond's pocket. And for that arrangement, DC cannot sell comics in any other way to direct market stores. Okay, Marvel has the same deal. This all came from years ago when Marvel broke off and bought a distributor and tried to break off and almost destroyed the comics industry back then. Okay, so this stuff has happened before. God willing, the industry will survive and it might happen again. I don't know, these type of crises, because there's usually a solution to them. Okay, so the idea here is that DC Comics already distributes through different channels, right? They distribute to bookstores through distributors like Baker and Taylor and Ingram and other places. They used to distribute to the newsstand, but newsstand distribution ended quite a few years ago, totally, for comics. So that's not even happening anymore. But the idea is that there are other distributors out there, and it was only the ability of Diamond to actually distribute comics that let them keep their exclusive distribution rights. So now with this crisis, as the Chinese like to say, they use the same character for crisis as they do for opportunity. So this is an opportunity for DC to do a few things. Diversify outside of the direct market. I've talked about that a few times, that I see moves that they're more towards courting the bookstores and going in a scholastic, young adults, kids direction. And then also more of an adult direction with their direct market books. So all that stuff could pivot. All the adult stuff ends up being the final sellable thing is not the comics, it's the graphic novels, right? That then get legs and sell or don't, get turned into movies or don't, or whatever. So as long as DC has a channel to create graphic novels, I think they're going to be okay. And they're definitely ahead of Marvel in the sense that DC has their own OGN program, right? Like they have put out original graphic novels. They don't put out a lot of them. They usually serialize, collect, multiple formats, etc. But they have put out brand new original graphic novels. Marvel has not done that since Death of Captain Marvel, maybe early 80s. Like Marvel really now in the comic book business, they're just churning out new material. They don't even have time to print kids comics. To try and court a new market, because they've got millions and millions of kids already from the movies and cartoons and media and all that stuff. Comics are very, 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 very small potatoes to a giant like Disney, Marvel, but also to Warner Brothers, DC. Thing is, Time Warner got bought by AT&T, and they are on much less stable financial footing than Disney, which is hugely profitable. AT&T had to borrow tons and tons and tons of money in order to buy Time Warner. And they're losing money hand over fist as cable cedes way to streaming. Disney is way ahead of the curve on that. Warner Brothers falling behind, so they cannot afford to lose money. I would not be surprised if the dictate to keep pushing digital comics online and maybe hopefully absorb direct market sales into that digital channel. I would not be surprised if they're coming from up above the level of, certainly, of the publisher, right? I don't think that's Jim Lee's decision. I like to give that guy some credit that he wouldn't do that. Then again, maybe he sees the writing on the wall and sees the future possibilities. I don't know. It's hard to say. So there is the idea. I got a long-time watcher, Coffee Breath, to put a comment in. Could this create the competition Diamond desperately needs? I think that is what is going to happen. Sort of. I think that after the crisis shakes out, who knows? Will this be a way for DC to break that monopoly? The idea of having multiple distributors sounds great, but what it really means is they have to split up the print run of the comics and, split that inventory across distributors. It used to be like Diamond would have all the comics. So if Diamond didn't have it, nobody had it. But, there was that one source. Now, if you're going to go back to multiple distributors like the good old days, where retailers have to have multiple accounts with them. And that's not to say they can't or shouldn't. They should have multiple accounts. Comic book stores, one of the main problems with comic book stores and one of the weaknesses that is being revealed here is that single distributor. And the fact that even though comic book stores can source things from multiple distribution, including graphic novels, books, toys, etc., most of them just go through Diamond and get it through Diamond. Even for the lower discount, in their minds, it's made up for by the convenience of that. I think it's larger stores with bigger procurement departments and like savvier knowledge of margins and stuff like that try to source directly to get the lowest price possible. But to do that, usually to go direct to somewhere like a Funko, you got to be talking they have volume minimums and stuff to meet discount levels like anything else. So that's often easier said than done. So, okay, that's enough about distribution methods, I think. It's a little inside baseball, so to speak, but man, this is the stuff that the industry lives and breathes on. So lives and dies upon, rather. So it's pretty important stuff. It's huge ramifications of what's coming down the pike in this industry. Do I think that this spells the end of comic book stores? I don't. I mean, I think that the comic book stores that still exist because they're really good at what they do. Now, there's a stereotype of comic book owners and comic book stores as being not great businessmen, people who are more in it as collectors than they are as business people, and there's a large contingent of that. The comic book guy, worst episode ever. That guy exists, right? You've seen him, you've met him. But man, what people don't realize exists are guys that have been out there for 20, 30, 40 years running this business through the ups and downs of this crazy industry, through fads and booms and busts and everything else. Their passion for the material, but also their business savvy is what let them stay in business as long as they have. Okay, guys, this is rambly. This is the first live comic book news, but man, I'm having fun. Now, you know where we should go now? I think you know. Let's go to the first ever live $1 Million Comics Cam. Wow! New comics this week, man. I got a lot of stuff of pretty varying quality. Didn't like most of it. Got these curbside at Scruffy Nerd Herder in Eureka, and Facsimile got the Hulk 182. No one was really clamoring for this, but man, what a cool looking book, and I really love to just juxtapose the density of comics from this era, the different ads and everything else of this era to modern day stuff. It was a different time. It was different stories for a different age and for a different type of comic book reader. But man, I love them. One thing that I'm going to be doing now, if there's no new comics coming out till who knows when, I'm going to be going back to the archives. I'm going to be doing facsimile editions, back issues, and graphic novels. So keep watching this channel. I'm going to keep the content coming, maybe live on a stream like this. You guys let me know whether you like this live or whether you prefer the canned version. Anyway, I shoot my stuff live on tape, so to speak, kind of like Happy Days in the old days. So this is not that different. Anyway, I read these in reverse. As usual, I read them in reverse order of what I thought would be the greatest. What does that mean? That means that the ones that I saved the best for last is what that means. So, I started with Hellions. I had no expectations of this whatsoever. I thought the story was okay. I thought the art was better than a lot of the new X books that have been coming out. The idea here is that we're going to take it's another Bad Boys book, so we're going to take all the sort of the X-Men that don't quite fit in to the new Krakoan paradigm, right? And we're going to take these guys that are more like villains that were X-Men villains in the past and put them on one team, with the exception of Havoc, who they've got some kind of like convoluted thing here where Havoc is going crazy. Something mysterious. He's about to kill someone, but Wolverine rushes in. Hey! You can't kill people! Wolverine won't let you kill people? Alright, they're not supposed to kill humans, but come on, you're in a life or death battle. A guy just shot a rocket launcher at your head. Over in the Wolverine book, which we'll look at in a minute, he's gutting people and slicing them up, so this doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. But whatever. So anyway, Havoc is on this team, right? Because he almost killed someone, so they almost had to exile him. A little bit contrived to get Havoc on the team and making him into bad boy Alex Summers. I don't think he was ever really that way. It appears there's some kind of mental thing going on that hasn't been revealed, so maybe he's possessed or whatever. Anyway, we've got some characters I don't really remember that much. Orphan Maker and the Nanny. I think these are old Liefeld characters. Wild Child back from the Omega Flight days of Alpha Flight, and then Empath from the old Hellions, who they've made into a really interesting character because they're saying like his mutant powers manifested themselves so early in his life that he just became a total monster because no matter what he did, if he did something really bad, he would just make everybody happy about it. He was sort of like, what's his name from that old Twilight Zone episode where you can wish people into the cornfield and everyone's like, oh yeah, what you did is good, Jimmy. It's very good. But like he's mentally controlling them. So there's a bit of a debate here. They're like, well, was he an evil guy that got mutant powers? Or is he evil because that was the natural manifestation of his mutant powers? So that's the conceit behind Hellions, is that we've got these guys that are bad, but man, maybe that's not their fault. Okay? And we got this guy, I forget his name. Scalp Hunter? Yeah, that's it, Scalp Hunter. I didn't even know he was a mutant. I remember him way back as a villain, but I guess he is a mutant. He's got these guns and stuff they can attach. He's kind of a badass gun guy. And in this, he was revealed like they go, they say like, oh, he tried to kill a bunch of mutants, when in reality, it was Callisto and a bunch of mutants attacked him during the anniversary of the Mutant Massacre. So he's sort of like, but he's like, he doesn't want to say that. He's just like, yeah, I guess I attacked him. So he's like this Clint Eastwood strong science type. Oh, and then, of course, we had to put another person on the team, so we brought in Psylocke. Fresh off her already failed Fallen Angels stint, they said, let's put her on a team of another team of badasses, right? Bad boys and bad girls. Because Psylocke, along the way, she's from that era of X-Men, and just that era of comics where the bad girl started to sort of take over. This was Jim Lee's redo. What was a British character, he made her Asian, and they sort of retconned this and that way. The new Captain Britain, Betsy Braddock, is now totally a separate character from this Quanon Psylocke character. Anyway, we got a lot of her posing and looking sexy, and being threatening, and being a bad gal. We've got the Mr. Sinister character, who is one of my favorite new takes in this new X-Men stuff. They've just made him into this sort of like weirdo, flamboyant dude. And I kind of like him. Anyway, I thought this comic was interesting. Spoiler alert coming up here. They're going, Mr. Sinister sends him on a mission to one of his old clone factories. And in there's a bunch of clone mutants. And who's in there but, who's that? Madeline Pryor? A lot of witchcraft going on. A lot of clones of other mutants, maybe. Iceman, is that Scalp Hunter there too? Perhaps, maybe. All right, this was okay. I would probably pick up the number 2 when it comes out. But who knows when that will be. I will not be buying it digitally. I'm buying regular comics. I'm supporting shops, man. All right, next up, Wolverine number 2. I reviewed number 1 on the channel. Number 2, man, I thought they're doing some interesting stuff with the artwork. They're trying some different stuff. This guy, it's Adam Kubert with Benjamin Percy writing. I think Kubert's trying some interesting stuff with page layouts. I don't think it's always all great. Here again, as I said, Wolverine in this book seems to be able to kill people all over the place, but it's partly because it's in his dream, and it ends up he thought he was killing bad guys, but he's killing his own team. But I've said it before, I'll say it again, in this new X-Men paradigm, who cares who gets killed? I don't care. Oh, Coffee Breath points out that Orphan and Nanny were from the Simonson X Factor days, which I read, but I don't remember that. That must have been some of the later issues. So anyway, Wolverine, I'm losing interest. I've never been a big fan of solo Wolverine to begin with. So this book has not been is not one that I'm super looking forward to. So Wolverine's possessed, he's acting evil, but we know he's not. Yawn, yawn, yawn. I would give this a thumbs up just for the Adam Kubert artwork, which is fun to look at. Okay, what did I read next? I'm not going to review this right now, but I'm going to look at it quickly. Action Comics 1021. I'll go through it quickly. This is a book I'm going to hopefully I'm going to talk to Wes from Thinking Critical about. Man, I was singing the praise of Action for a while, but this latest arc is such a mess. The John Romita Jr. artwork is not quite doing it for me. It's okay, but the storyline itself, all these villains from the Year of the Villain stuff are shoehorned in, but they sort of just leave in this issue. Didn't make tons and tons of sense. The only thing I'm really liking, it's a giant battle. The only thing I'm really liking in Action is the I like this Red Cloud character who now she made a sort of slightly heroic turn in this one. She had Superman on the ropes. Still not clear how she can defeat Superman. Because her powers, they showed her sort of semi-origin and it looked completely scientifically based. But looking at the character and knowing how she's able to defeat Superman, it seems like there's magic involved. So Bendis has intrigued me with this, although it's been drawn out now for a long time. Over a year. All right, more stuff with Leviathan. I'll tell you the truth, I'm kind of checked out of Leviathan. I'm not going to probably read that new miniseries if it ever comes out in stores anyway. But I do still like the Leone character, the secret mafia, that whole idea of Superman, despite being really powerful, you could be smart enough to defeat the guy. Anyway, Action Comics. I'm going to talk about that more with Wes. We're going to do a little Bendis beatdown. I also saw Legion 5 came out. I didn't pick up or review Legion 4, so I read them both. Bought them both and read them. Gosh darn it if it's not one of the best looking books on the market. You know, Ryan Sook is just great. Channeling a little Frank Quitely maybe in this, maybe not. But anyway, now we're getting into the actual origin of the characters. The first issues were just like typical Bendis, throw you down in the middle of everything and just let it be messy. But now in flashback, another Bendis trope, we're getting to see the true origins of the Legion and how Lightning Lad or whatever his name is now has a sister who's kind of like more radical than him and refused to join this legion, right? They were all asked to join by the president of the new federation. Cosmic Boy is sort of like a jock, like athlete hero in his realm, and Saturn Girl is sort of like just sick and tired of living on Titan, where there's no physical presence, everything's all mental. And it's beautiful to look at. I actually think the story is starting to get interesting origin on these characters. I mean, the artwork alone puts it so far above so many other books on the market right now that I'm willing to give it a chance. The Bendis storyline is starting to yield some stuff. We're ringing in Triplicate Girl and Bouncing Boy. And anyway, we're on number 5 now. More stuff with Computo, their supercomputer. And just look at that. Just look. It's just pretty to look at. The colors are nice. The pencil's beautiful. Look at this stuff. This is Sook is really on top of his game. I wish the story was a little more linear, I guess. A little less convoluted. But it looks like there's politics and intrigue with this president who formed the Legion. But why did she really form it? There's a lot of questions about her motivations. And this is a book that I might have kept reading. You know, I actually took it off my list, but I kept getting so pulled in by the attractive covers that and artwork on the inside that I've been picking it up. Also, a lot of dialogue. It's a denser book. There's a lot going on. It takes a while to read this stuff. Not a huge fan of this Aquaman's Secret Trident thing. But I'm enjoying it enough to keep reading it, I guess. Finally, the book I saved for last. Giant-Sized X-Men Nightcrawler. Really a fan of these giant-sized X-Men. This is the second one now. The first one was what? Jean Grey and Emma Frost. And it was it was beautiful artwork by Dodderman. That dude, Russell Dodderman. This one, man, art by Alan Davis, which I was really excited about. Unfortunately, I think Alan Davis inked his own stuff, it looks like, in here. And it's a cut below what it would look like without Paul Neary, who I believe is his usual inker and really does just such great stuff. You need like a Neary or a Terry Austin or something like that on top of Davis for it to be, in my opinion, at the top of its game. However, you know, Davis is no slouch. His penciling skills are solid. Even without that, even at what I'm going to call this a cut below maybe some Alan Davis stuff we've seen in the past, or even recently, frankly, depending on the inker, still solid storytelling, and this was a done-in-one story that I really enjoyed. I'm not going to go through everything. I'm not going to go panel by panel and tell you the whole story. But they go back to the X-Mansion. There's a lot with these kind of alien bug characters who I'm not really familiar with, but I can't remember the exact run that they came from previous in X-Men. But we learned some secrets here about Doug Ramsey and Warlock and what's been going on. This guy with the eyeballs, I had never heard of him. They keep calling him Trevor, and I didn't even know what his superhero name was until the very end. So it looks like there's a secret here. Doug is revealing, spoiler, sorry. Doug is revealing to Illyana that Warlock is just still around, but Warlock is like, you know, Illyana's like, Doug, normal arm, twinkle in your eye. How long have you and Warlock been running this game and why? And Warlock says, shh, friend Illyana, secret has to stay secret for friend's sake. So there's something going on. As I've said from the beginning, there's something kooky going on with Doug Ramsey and a secret involving Krakoa and everything else. It's being hinted at here. And they brought the character Lady Mastermind is sort of at the center of this thing. And I have a little quibble here. Why would she have to be Lady Mastermind? Why would a mastermind be assumed to be male, but you have to say Lady Mastermind to qualify it? I don't know. I really don't care that much about stuff like that, but it's just weird. So we had a solid story. I enjoyed it. What's Eye Boy? Great name. So this guy has eyeballs all over him. kind of like the Eyeball Kid, Eddie Campbell's Eyeball Kid, but every eye has different types of vision power, so you can see heat vision or like thermal vision and infrared and whatever. Okay, interesting. But coming next, giant size X-Men is going to be Magneto, and I'm pretty jazzed about that. I'm not sure who the creative team is, but I'm liking the giant size X-Men's a lot. Of all the X-Men books, for me, it's giant size X-Men and regular X-Men. Any of the Hickman stuff, I've been liking the New Mutant stuff that he writes and not liking the stuff that he doesn't write. So, man, what a bummer that just at a time when I'm getting excited about comics again, I got back into weekly and monthly comics again, the whole world comes to a grinding to a halt. Boo-hoo, poor me. Aw, the world's coming to an end and Danny can't get his funny books. Well, man, I've been reading these things solid since I was like 10 years old. That's 30 years of reading these things. So I'm going to need to get my comics fixed. Luckily, graphic novels are still around. I've got an extensive graphic novel library here in the back cave. We'll be dipping into that in the next few weeks. Rest assured, we're not going to stop this thing. I'm going to keep coming with the comic book news. I'm going to keep coming with the live streams. I'm not sure if I'm going to switch over to an all live stream format or not, but I'm definitely got an upcoming retailer live stream this Tuesday night. 7:30 Pacific time, I think that's it. I'll be posting an announcement soon, and we're going to have more details from some of the best comic book shops in the country about how this current crisis is affecting them. Let's hear what they think about alternative distribution and digital first. These are huge issues that are going to define comic books in the 21st century. Wow, and you're getting it all here on Comic Book News. Guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for doing everything you do, commenting especially. That's what makes this channel really special to me, is getting to interact with you and talking about comics with people who love them as much as I do. And that's you. Anyway, thank you for checking us out and continuing to support the channel. We'll see you soon, and thanks for watching.